सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। After the entire sequence of how the sadhana has to be performed, from the withdrawal of or control of the organs of perception and action, withdrawing its attachment to the world of objects, and from there to the mind, from mind to the intellect, from the intellect to the mahat or the totality, from the totality into the avyakta, which is prakriti, and from the prakriti into the supreme, and having reached that supreme, sa kashta sa paragatihi, that is the ultimate, that is the highest, nothing beyond, nothing more than that. Having given that, what is the next direction given by the Grand Master here? Most famous mantra of this particular Upanishad, which was the call of the day given by Swami Vivekananda. That is the next mantra. Arise, awake, stop not till the goal is reached. That which we see Swami Vivekananda speak so many times, he has repeated it. The first two words are picked from this particular Upanishad. So repeat after me. Page 177, mantra number 14. Twelfth one? ओके, ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं. 11th is done, so 12th. येष सर्वेषु भूतेषु गूढोत्मा न प्रकाशते दृश्यते त्वग्रया बुद्ध्या सूक्ष्मया सूक्ष्मदर्शिभिः. And where is this Paramatma, Parabrahma Tattva? Because so much of layers has been discussed, so we might immediately conclude that it is really far, far away. So the mantra here is saying, don't worry, it is not that far away. It is in fact verily your own essence. So he is saying, Yesha sarveshu bhuteshu gudotma gudaha atma na prakashate. It is verily the essence of every single creature out there, including you and me. Yesha sarveshu bhuteshu. That which is verily the essence, the heart of Gudha Atma, the very heart of every being, every creature. But then, na prakashate. It is not seen. Na prakashate. It is not seen. Why is it not seen? This is again, when we say that the electricity is everywhere or the radio waves are everywhere, they are. But then, to tap into those frequencies, we require that kind of an instrument, and that instrument which is fine-tuned for that very purpose. If there is a radio, first you have to turn it on and then tune that radio to that particular frequency and then increase the volume. Then you can start hearing that particular wavelength of frequency. Though it is present, it is not experienceable. Na prakashate. Why is it not prakashate? Because the instruments that is required to fine tune is not even turned on. And what are those instruments? The instruments is buddhya. The third case means by the buddhi. Buddhya. Now, how should this buddhi be? There are adjectives given. What are the adjectives? Two adjectives given to it. One is agraya buddhya, sukshmya buddhya. Agra buddhi and sukshma buddhi. Now, what does agraya buddhya mean? Just like how the tip of the knife is sharp edge. Similarly, the buddhi has to be agraya, sharp. And it has to be subtle. See, again, to understand the sharpness, even in a very gross way, to cut the wood, the axe has a different sense of sharpness. To shave the facial hair, the blade requires a different kind of sharpness. In comparison to the shaving blade, the axe that is used to cut the wood would appear little blunt. Right? Just because they say it is a sharp edged axe, you cannot use that for shaving your face. Now here, when the sharpness is indicated, what do we mean? That it is sattvic as long as possible. It is maintained in its sattvikata. And it has the proper right conviction. It is all the game of convictions. The entire misery of the jiva is purely because he is convinced he is limited. The buddhi has a conviction that it is limited. So the example that is usually given of the convictions is whenever you may have seen in the stables or even in the movies, that you don't have to actually tie a horse or a donkey to a pole or a rod or a peg. You have seen those Western movies, they just take the reins and simply wrap it around a wooden post. They don't tie it, just swirl it around, and that much action is sufficient. Even if there is no rope, for that donkey or a horse which has been habituated to the pattern of having reins on its around its head and neck, if you just do a elaborate action of having taken that rope and tied it to a post, it is convinced. It is convinced that I am tied. And if there is somebody who doesn't see a rope and says, oh, this is a horse down I can snatch, but does not realize that that action has been done, that as though it has been tied. The untying process, if it is not done, the horse will refuse to move from there. And even more stubborn is the donkey. वो हिलेगा नहीं वहां से. Why? Because it is convinced that it is tied, though there is no rope. Similarly, our buddhi has a conviction. Conviction born of the gunas, that I am this body, mind and intellect, this equipment. Funnily, the word guna has two meanings. One, guna means qualities. Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. Guna also means a rope. Gunena baddha. The one who is tied down by the rope. We are tied down not like the massive rope, but every single pattern of organ of perception action, the mind, its likes and dislikes, scores of it, millions and millions of likes and dislikes, several different kinds of ideas, patterns of, thought patterns of convictions. They are all small, small strings, but they are in so many various kinds of millions of such ropes, such threads. It almost feels like the Gulliver travel. The fellow is stuck in an island of tiny people, not even midget, they are like microscopic people, and he is washed ashore, and in that shore he wakes up and he sees all these midgets running around, these tiny people running around him, running around on his body also, and he tries to snap out and get up, and he sees that he's tied down. But tied down with what? Not a solid rope or a very efficient rope, but millions of small threads running around so thickly, so densely, that little thread has bound this gigantic person. We are also like that. है छोटे छोटे आदतें. The habits are small habits. Almost we brush it aside thinking, this is nothing. And when somebody warns us, right, that you should take a look at your tea drinking habit. I can live without tea. We just brush it aside. It's not a big deal. But the sense of craving mind is a creature of habits. You will not believe that after the 2 year training, 2.5 year training in the Sandipani Sadhanalaya, wherein for breakfast, lunch, dinner, lunch and dinner, we used to chant 15th chapter before we partake our meal. You will not believe. After I came back, every time there is 15th chapter chanted, you would start feeling hungry. Strange. It took me a while to break out of that pattern. Otherwise, imagine chanting 15th chapter. Supposing I have gone to a school because there is a competition and I have to teach those children or the teacher there. After chanting, it is severe hunger. It creates that psychological effect as though now it is time. Though it is not the time for it. I may have had breakfast, I may have had lunch and dinner, and the moment I chant, hunger would strike. Creature of habits. And how many habits do we have? Oh, hey, Baba. So, one thing I have personally understood, wherever there is a certain pattern developing, recognize it, break it. Never ever settle down into a comfort zone. It has to be broken. Whatever it is. There is not a thing or a habit which is absolutely to say that it is not to be had, because that also becomes a habit. There is a aversion towards it. There has to be neither an aversion nor an attraction. There has to be neither a like nor a dislike. Our mind should be in a state wherein the presence of it or the absence of it should not create a ripple. Otherwise, what happens? I know of people at 3:34, if they don't get chai, सर दर्द आने लगता है. And my way of imagining it, though may not be medically correct, is probably the very thought intensity. अरे चाय नहीं मिला, अरे चाय नहीं मिला, अरे चाय नहीं मिला. That amplified creates unnecessary headache. I have tried experimenting with them. It is a hot beverage, right? Instead of chai, if it is hot water with something else. No, it is very specific, the habit. It has to be that milk chai with all the masala, and the heat level has to be that level. That is when it will feel satisfied, gratified. Otherwise, there is that craving still left. The pratyamnaya, the alternatives also don't work. There is no prarabdha karma. We have created that pattern, a habit. And this is just one habit. If it is not that kind of a mattress, whatever is the softness or the hardness of that mattress, you travel, it is not according to your choice. There is a generic average one that they put. वो नींद ही नहीं लगती है. Why? The mattress, it matters. I mean, if you can start exploring into it, millions and millions and millions. Bogged down by these different kinds of patterns, the equipment, the internal equipment, the mind, the intellect has become dull. That it seeks only that comfort zone. A little disturbance from that comfort zone, agitated. See, having discomfort, bechaini. The word is also beautiful. Bechaini. Chain. Chain matlab to be composed, calm. Bechaini. Absence of that composure or calmness. Agitated. Even the texture of cloth that we wear, if it changes, I don't know, this constantly. And another habit of mine, I thought, I was quite open-minded after doing the Vedanta course. Then came to, most of the food is bhiksha. Now we have a blessed environment where there is a cook and the cook cooks and we can tell the cook what to, what not to, and cater to the requirement. Bhiksha, sometimes it is there, sometimes it is not there, especially curd. As a southern Indian habit, no meal is feeling complete without curd. I used to go to Bhiksha and then come back and have a morsel of curd rice. तभी नींद लगती थी. Why? Creature of habit. Bogged down by these habits, the internal equipment refuses to look beyond that zone of comfort. So that the sharpness of the intellect to process something beyond comfort zone is actually making it dull. So for the buddhi to be in that sattvic attitude, meaning it has to be vigilant every single moment. Therefore, Gurudev used to use, I think, 3 adjectives to the intellect: sharp, alert, vigilant intellect. It has to be sharp. What makes it dull is the patterns of habits that it has been completely subdued. Beyond that, it refuses to think. Now, one has to diligently sit down, look at the pattern of life. What are the things and environments which give me that comfort? No habit is insignificant habit. Every habit takes its toll. To be so vigilant that the intellect should not be entertained with any kind of comfort zone. Another statement that Gurudev often makes: when you deal with the world around, don't be harsh. Deal with your heart, deal with your understanding. Accommodate their habits. Accommodate their comfort zone. But when you deal with yourself, deal with it with a ruthless intellect. But that intellect has to be sharp. कहाँ कहाँ लटका पड़ा हुआ है, we will have to consciously work at it. Diligently, one pattern at a time. Agraya buddhya. Sukshmaya. It has to be subtle. The intellect has to be very, very subtle. That it can penetrate into the subtlest of the idea. All this for what purpose? So that the existing conviction that I am this limited jivatva and there are certain parameters for this jivatva. The value-based system that has been given is given for the purpose so that the intellect can be strengthened and move beyond those. But then we get completely stumbled by our own value system and we become rigid with it. It is a support system. Just like a plant, just like a tree, as it is still young and growing, we put some kind of a wire to give it strength so that it doesn't lean, it doesn't fall, it doesn't get knocked out by the winds. But timely, if the gardener has not removed those binding wires, the tree doesn't stop growing. The tree will grow massively. But as it grows with the shackles still there in place, it will grow out of that and start growing up. And that which was supposed to be a support system for it, that very point of support becomes the weakest point because it was not trimmed, it was not removed timely manner. One little push at that point, that whole branch, whole tree can fall apart. Why? There is no strength in that point. Bhishma's weakness was his vow. And it took Bhagwan to come down to the battlefield to educate him that Baba, your vow was supposed to be for that very purpose, and then that purpose was served. Your vow stands redundant, null and void. But we make a value system of it and then stick to it with such stubbornness that we refuse to move beyond. Just like a pole vault jumper, the stick, the pole has helped him, usher him to that height. Having reached, what should that person do? Drop it so that they can jump forward. And that is why, I don't remember which book of Gurudev says, of all the layers of gunas, Sattvic guna is the strongest binding force that becomes a shackle for us to transcend. From tamas, a little discipline, you come to rajas. From rajas, a little attribute of self-conscious righteousness, and you can transcend that. And once you transcend that and are abiding in that, that's why we say, on the high horse of self-righteousness. Where is it required? Where is it not required? It is not, lakir ka fakir nahi hai wo. It is to bring us to that point. Having reached there, that should also be dropped. Otherwise, that keeps pulling us back. Why is it becoming a stumbling block? Because the intellect now has to transcend even that which has strengthened it. To understand, to invoke that intuitive intellect. That intuitive intellect which now can see very clearly that I am not any of these qualities, I am not any of these instruments, I am not even that which is the reflected consciousness. I clearly see that it is only a reflection. Now I have to have the courage to face my own true nature. That intuitive sharpness has to kick in. And what binds us is our own sattvikata. That's why the Parabrahma Tattva is called Gunatita san. It is that which is never bound by the gunas and it transcends all gunas. Sukshmaya and agraya buddhya. That is when we can understand, assimilate, abide in our own true nature. Sukshma darshibhi. Continuing, therefore, what should we do? यच्छेद्वाङ् मनसि प्राज्ञः तद्यच्छेद् ज्ञान आत्मनि तद्यच्छेद् ज्ञान आत्मनि ज्ञानमात्मनि महति नियच्छेत् तद्यच्छेत् शान्त आत्मनि. There are lots of sandhi here. Let us look into the words. Yachet vang manasi prajnah tad yachet jnana atmani. Jnanam atmani mahati niyachet tat yachet shanta atmani. See, whenever the takara is followed by ya, yachet, prajnah tat yachet. Tat, ta is followed by ya. So what happens to that ta and ya? The ta becomes half cha and the ya becomes cha. Tat yachet. And here mahati niyachet tat yachet shanta atmani. That's why when you say Srimat Shankaracharya, ta followed by sh, there also it changes into Srimat Shankaracharya. Cha and cha. So that sandhi vichhed has to be seen properly. And it is a tongue twister. Yachet vang manasi prajnah tad yachet jnana atmani. Here, prajnah, the wise ones, what do they do? Bring the organs of perception and action into the mind. Withdraw the organs of perception and action into the mind. Withdraw the mind into the intellect. Jnana Atmani. Jnana Atmani here means the intellect. Jnana Atmani Mahati Niyachet. Let it grow into the totality. One with the totality. Tad Yachet Shanta Atmani. That intellect now has to be withdrawn into the highest, which is the peaceful Atma within. How do we bring the organs of perception action into the mind? Externally, there has to be a discipline set. One has to understand one's own patterns. That is when you will understand where that discipline has to be necessarily put. For example, I observed quite early that because the field is me constantly speaking. So I observed, even in the non-yajna platforms, where there is a casual gathering, I started, in the same mood, because it had become the habitual error. So I made it a point that unless there is a mic, don't give out your impressions or suggestions unless asked for. Not necessary. If I were you, I would do this. Have they asked you? Chup. They are not you. You can't even fathom as to where it is hurting unless asked. Okay. Now, second layer of this. Many of us feel frustrated that you give an advice, we immediately assume that because I have given an advice, that person should adhere and follow that advice. Otherwise, it is my time waste. बड़े आए लाड साहब, as though you are the totalitarian, the king sitting there, and your suggestion should be listened to. Detach, give, and it is their choice. Bhagavan Krishna himself, after giving 700 slokas, he says, Arjuna, I have given the complete gist of the entire Vedantic knowledge. Now it is up to you. Yatechasi tatha kuru. Whatever you think is the most appropriate shreyas, you take that choice. When Bhagavan himself has completely detached mindset, has said, now it is up to you, who am I to say sitting there that because I have said you have to now follow? They may have asked. First layer, only if asked. Second, even after being asked, it is not my purview. There has to be that room of growth for that person to understand, assimilate and grow. It will take its own time. Many a times they come back and say, you had said this earlier. I should have, put it into practice then. But now I see the need for it. Therefore, I have made that change. Unless they see the need, the necessity, there will be no pressure from inside to really put it into action. Why are you making it your ego statement? ठीक है. It is a field of Vyavahara. It will go up, it will go down. There is nothing calamitous that is going to happen. Maybe if not in this life, at least next life they'll have the opportunity to work on it. Don't put that ego in that perspective. Withdraw that. Similarly here, the patterns once understood, right? Withdraw those patterns into the mind. Externally discipline, internally the understanding. Both have to go hand in hand to have the most effective withdrawal. Just by the external discipline, it is only time limited. You keep getting frustrated when you tell your children to do certain things. They have not internalized it. Why have they not internalized it? Because the responsibility has not hit them hard yet. When will it hit? When they step out of your umbrella, when they have to start fending for themselves, that is when it will kick in. No young sapling ever grows under the shade of its own tree. It will be a stunted growth. We see that in nature. Similarly, here, how many times does it not happen when the child goes out and then meekishly they come and confess, Papa, you used to tell this. I always never, paid attention to it. Not that I was trying to ignore, I didn't see the importance. Now that I am facing life all by myself, I see the value in it. Similarly, once I find that necessity, there the external discipline alone will not help. The internal understanding also has to support it, so that from the outside it is pushing in, from the inside it is pulling in. Both have to happen. That is when it will slowly come to that point wherein at a snap you can withdraw the senses to your choice whenever required. There will not be a point like, I don't know, it's uncontrollable. I don't know why I am feeling this agitation, frustration, anger. And all these are merely thought patterns. And that thought pattern which is taking the support of its very existence from me. How can that thought pattern limit me? I am the one providing the source for it to exist. The day we understand, I stop being harassed by my own organs of perception action. I have withdrawn it. Where does this help? Wherever there is a focal point required, that is where it will help. Whether it is in Vyavahara or Adhyatma. In Vyavahara, I have to pull my mind away from all other distractions to fulfill that particular responsibility. I should be able to snap out of all the other avocations to bring my entire persona into that particular moment. Specifically, when I sit down to do my puja, japa, dhyana, I should be able to order the organs of perception action withdraw, and they withdraw flawlessly. It is not running out here and there. This has to be practiced in our day to day, so that when I sit on the seat of meditation, the withdrawal is complete and instantly. Otherwise, that half an hour, all that I am doing, pushing, pulling, that is where we are mostly. अरे फिर चला गया mind, again it has gone into sounds, again it has gone into smells, again it has gone into the field of other experiences. I have lost track of time. इसी पुल एंड पुश में चलता रहेगा. There is no effective movement into the meditative field because you are in the externalities. If the externalities are disciplined and brought in with understanding in through the day to day working environment, when I sit on the seat of meditation, it easily withdraws. From there on, gliding into that supreme peaceful environment becomes easier. Again, I cannot insist enough. Therefore, the karma yoga attitude of working in our day to day life is unequivocally the most essential step. where every single thought, word, act that I am doing is from that detached attachment, that I pull them into that particular field, channelize it, and that channelizing is in my control of my organs of perception action. When it is not in control, what happens? A little effort and the organs of perception action start crying, I am tired, this is too boring, this is not effective, this is not this, this is not that. It starts complaining. But imagine, you yourself have done that several times in your life, that where you are convinced efficiently you have been working twice or thrice the time of amount that you would have earlier worked, and yet at the end of the work you do not feel tired. In Kindle Life or Self Unfoldment, one of these books, Gurudev gives a very beautiful example. After coming back from a tiring day, your relaxation is, say, in playing badminton, table tennis, or tennis. Do you think that is less strenuous, less energy despended? No. It requires a lot of energy to be pulled in to be able to play. But when you immerse yourself and the mind, all the organs, they are completely channelized into that game that you are into. Though you would now be excessively tired, you are inside calm and composed. So the organs of perception action bring it into the mind. The mind tutored by, where is that understanding coming from? Jnana Atmani. The intellect is helping, supporting that mind to withdraw those organs of perception and action, and the mind implicitly surrenders to that intellect inside. If the external surrender has not happened to an altar, do you think internally it will subdue itself and surrender to that intellect? Therefore, the external step of humility has to be ingrained. Therefore, when we see elders, what has been taught? You do namaskar. That's one thing that I like about the northern Indian culture. Immaterial of where you are, whether it is airport, whether it is railway station, whether it is in school, wherever you are, they will immediately bend down. Maybe only to the knee level, but they will bend down and seek blessings. Even subtler than that is when our head bows down in complete surrenderance to that Almighty, to that Ishtadevata. There is a song on Puja Gurudev, Sadguru Tumhare Pyar Ne Jeena Sikha Diya. It is in a Qawwali style. I'm sure you all have heard it. So there, this is, जो सर कभी झुका नहीं, वो सर आज तेरे दर पर सजदे में झुक गया. That now I understand the meaning of surrenderance. That mind has to be ingrained with that humility to surrender. That is when it will have the habit of surrendering to the higher intellect which is guiding it. Now, this intellect has to be growing out of the selfishness to identify with the totality. Most of us or all of us are constantly looking out for oneself. In fact, those who identify with that totality are seen as fools in today's world. तुम अपना देखो, बाकी उनका सरदर्द है. You don't have to worry about them. You are a fool unnecessarily wasting your time in trying to help and support others. First, you take care. You don't have to. People advise this. But that is the intellect which has gotten that Satvikata, wherein the selfishness can be easily dropped to identify with the totality. Yesterday evening also I was telling, that identification with the totality comes out as how can I be of support, how can I be of a solution, how can I be of help to you, whichever that environment be. Not how will I get, what will I get from the environment, what will I give to the environment. How can I be an active, productive, positive influence into that situation to provide that solution. Sometimes the solution is not something big, just to be there, to be a support, to be a shoulder, to relax upon, to listen to. That also is a great seva to transcend my own selfishness, to be able to be selfless, to be there for others around. Now, because there were such, all those who fought for the independence of this country, did they cherish the independence? They sacrificed. For what? Even to this day, when I see armed forces, I salute them. Why? They have families, they have children, they have all the responsibilities that you and I have. But they are selfless enough to go out there, put their lives on line. See, when this COVID happened, I was stuck in US. And there were several people who were not affected by it, but were asking what kind of seva to be done. So I said there are two kinds of seva. One, those who are in the front line, trying to serve those that are affected, whether it is police, whether it is the nurses, whether it is the doctor, whether various such essential services. The hotels had closed, the restaurants had closed, nothing was available. Luckily, the grocery stores were available. I said, serve them. Those families where all of them are impacted, or those families where the children are caught because there was a travel ban, children were caught in some other cities and the elderly parents, elderly sickly parents that were left behind, and they don't have anybody to fend for themselves. So for such people, let us cook in bulk and provide at least food. 200-300 packages daily, at least twice a day. All that I would do is, I had 3-4 brahmacharis also, so we would all cook, pack it, and then drop it off at their front door. Because those who are in front line, they have given up their own comfort, their own selfishness. They could have been sitting comfortably and yet put their lives on line so that they can serve that totality. That is the growth that one needs to have, not just in calamitous environment, in every day-to-day life environment. Mahati niyachet. Now, such intellect which has grown to appreciate that totality and be a part, integral part to provide for that totality, Mahati niyachet, it finds a calm. Why? Because there is that immense fulfillment inside. And where there is fulfillment, there is peace. Wherever there is sarthakata, it yields peace. Mind is full now. It is not running after. It doesn't have to. Why? It is already full. It is filled. Therefore, it doesn't search for meaning out there. It is already full and filled. It experiences peace within. In that peaceful environment alone, the intellect can glide into that supreme. Shanta Atmani Niyachet. That peaceful mind alone can glide into that supreme. Not otherwise. These days, the way it is being promoted, bring the agitated mind, make it sit into meditation, and thereby now you will elevate yourself. Kuch nahi hoga. It will be a good effort wasted on nothing. It has to go out there and put it into practice to humble itself, to find that trupti, to find that fulfillment when it is for the totality. To raise that mind from the egotistical perspective to be able to serve the higher. And that is where the trupti is. Those who have the habit of cooking, that day when you have had a lot of people at home and you have cooked elaborately, the person who has actually cooked, after having served, they don't actually feel hungry that day. Kyun ma? Why don't they feel hungry? It's not that they are tired, therefore there is no hunger. Because they have expended a lot of energy, therefore they should be more hungry. But the trupti kicks in. And when that trupti kicks in, you feel completely relieved of any other agitation. You find that peace. Therefore, there is no hunger. And how can you find this peace? Only when the organs of perception action are withdrawn with both discipline and understanding, the mind comes out of its comfort zone and the intellect, it surrenders, and that intellect now dedicates itself to the totality, and that intellect now experiencing the Shantatva can turn within and glide to that supreme. See how beautifully the sequence is laid out. We all appreciate it. सबको पसंद आया, समझ में आया, पसंद आया ना? But then we appreciate it with a wow effect and stop there. Therefore, the next mantra, which we will see tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya, ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।